it's a very powerful framework. But the top of the funnel is essentially where our dreams sit. It's our long-term, 10-year target or whatever we want to achieve over the long term. And what we need to do with that dream is we need to filter it down through our 3-year vision, our 1-year, plan, our quarterly rocks, our weekly to-dos, and our daily habits, our daily to-dos to get us closer to that goal. So ultimately, what we're doing in that prioritization funnel is we're throwing our 3C's dream, our big, compelling dream, into the top of it, rattling it down so that we know what the very next habits are, the very next to-dos that we need to do in order to get us closer to that dream. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear and Three Things. And today, I want to start a 2-part series on some of the books that have impacted me. Yeah, that's right. This is going to be something of a book report. And I was never good at giving book reports when I was a kid, and maybe I'm still not. But what I do want to share here in these next 2 episodes of this podcast, this week and next week, is I want to share first this week the 3 books that have impacted me and helped me to create a powerful vision, and then turn that vision into the daily habits that I practice on a daily basis to help, just propel me forward and keep me consistent. And then next week, I want to move into the reflection part, how we reflect on our daily habits and how we reflect on our achievements that can help us fuel us to future vision and future results. And the reason that this is important is because a lot of times when it comes to our reading, there are millions of books out there on personal development and all sorts of stuff that tell us what we need to do to achieve great things. And it can be overwhelming. There's a lot. I mean, there's just a lot of information out there. And I find a lot and I was having some conversations earlier this week with some friends of mine about, all of the books we're reading, and we were a bit frustrated. And I heard a lot of frustration there about, just the sheer number of books that we're reading or that are being recommended to us or that we have to read because they're telling us things. And a lot of times they're telling us the same things, but in a different way. But we find ourselves just doing a lot of reading and not a lot of acting, right? I mean, you read a lot of books and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and then it just falls beyond the wayside and it starts to collect dust. And I know that frustrates me because I have so many books on my bookshelf that are dog-eared and everything. And I think I've learned a lot from them. I think I've integrated some of the stuff from them, but it's always hard if we're going one after another. So one of the habits I've tried to get into is trying to implement the right strategies and then sticking to it with consistency. That's one of the traps we fall into a lot of times, is this trap. And this happens with our dreams a lot of times. We see infomercials or we see an Instagram post showing us the exact solution we need, and we go after it. And we tend to do so impulsively without really putting a lot of critical thought into why we're doing it. And that's the very nature of that impulsive desire dream that leads you into the honeymoon phase and the vicious cycle of burnout, right? You follow that impulsive desire. It leads you into this honeymoon phase where you enjoy the journey for a while, or you enjoy the book, you get a lot from it. But then all of a sudden, at some point in time, you get either complacent with what you're putting into action, or you burn out completely and you give up on it and you go back to the old habits, and the book collects dust or your dreams collect dust. And then you repeat the cycle on the very next book or the very next dream that you have. And the antidote to that is what I would call a 3C's dream, right? And we talked about that in a previous episode. It's a dream that's convicted, courageous, and clear. So if you want to learn more about that, look at that, watch that or listen to that previous episode that I did on the 3C's dream. And that'll tell you how to build a compelling, courageous, and clear dream, something that will give you meaning to help you transcend that vicious cycle and get into a virtuous cycle of achievement. But within that virtuous cycle of achievement, when you get that convicted, courageous, and clear dream, you look at it and you see that it's still way, way out there. And you're thinking to yourself, from where I'm at right now, I can't just leap and achieve that. If you picture it as the top of a staircase, you can't just expect to leap to the top of the staircase and achieve your dream. No, you have to approach it methodically and get to it in a certain way. And that's the importance of building a roadmap. And that's what gets me into today's episode, which is where I want to introduce you to the books that I've used and that really, really continue to help me, that I continue to implement on a daily basis to help me build that roadmap to success, to that 3C's dream. And ultimately, they fit really perfectly into this model that I have called the prioritization funnel. Now, the prioritization funnel, and I will do a newsletter on this and I'll introduce it to you in Loom. So if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, subscribe to my newsletter and I'll put a video together that shows how this funnel looks. And I'll even include the bottom part. It looks like an hourglass. It's a very powerful framework. But the top of the funnel is essentially where our dreams sit. It's our long-term, 10-year target or whatever we want to achieve over the long term. And what we need to do with that dream is we need to filter it down through our 3-year vision, our 1-year, plan, our quarterly rocks, our weekly to-dos, and on our daily habits, our daily to-dos to get us closer to that goal. So ultimately, what we're doing in that prioritization funnel is we're throwing our 3C's dream, our big, compelling dream, into the top of it, rattling it down so that we know what the very next habits are, the very next to-dos that we need to do in order to get us closer to that dream. And the books that can help us do that, there are a few books that can help us do that and to create that vision, because this is a method that's really important. And creating that plan is critical to achieving it. As with anything, if you're going to travel, say, across the United States, if you know that you want to go from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., well, great. You know your destination, you know your starting point, but do you know how to get there without a map? Maybe you can drive east and just hope that eventually you get there, and probably you will. I don't know, but it'll take a lot of effort and a lot of frustration, a lot of wrong turns. But you're gonna be better off with a map, with a roadmap of how to get there. And so the point is that as you're building this roadmap, that when you take that destination, that Washington D.C. of whatever it may be, your 3C's dream, that you're first starting out and you're looking at like, okay, well, what do I need to achieve in the next 3 years in order to get me closer to where I want to get to? And maybe you can achieve that dream in 3 years. Who knows? But the point is that you take whatever your dream is, whatever that thing that seems impossible, and you want to create a vision for your life. And the best book that I've found, in my opinion, that has helped do that, to clarify it in such a simple way that it lights you up about what your vision is going to be and what you want to get, is this book by Cameron Herold called Vivid Vision. And Vivid Vision literally helps you to write out your own, whether it be for your business or your personal life, it helps you to write out your own vision for the next 3 years and what you want to achieve. So, and it asks you to to dream big, to really pursue what you want to go after. What does that look like? What does that vision look like? And you can see I've dog-eared this quite a bit to show that you want to implement something, you want to create something that is compelling to you. And for me, what I've done with that vivid vision. So if you read this book, you'll learn, what you need to have in a vivid vision to make it to make it clear, but ultimately you want to write that vivid vision. You want to write that vision statement 3 years out, and you want to write it as if you've already achieved it. So if you want to own your own business, say, you say in there, I am the owner and operator of XYZ business, and we are, selling $1 million in revenue each year, and we have a service model that represents this. You say, I am contributing 10% of my income every year to XYZ charity. And I am donating 15% of my total time to this. You get specific enough so that you make it compelling and you know what success looks like. And as you do that, that vision starts to light you up, and you can reference it so that you are creating a meaningful target to get to in the next 3 years. Make sure you're putting the numbers in there. Make sure you're putting the way you're feeling in there. Make sure you put your health in there. Make sure you put your contribution in there, and your relationships, all of those things that fill you up. And my suggestion is that in Cameron Herold's suggestion for this vivid vision is that you go to a place, that is undistracted, that is not your home, but maybe somewhere out in nature or somewhere where you can really, really, write it out and brain dump this whole thing and put it into some coherent fashion. But that is the first step you want to take, is you want to create that vivid vision. So pick up this book if you don't have it already, if you haven't read it, Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. It'll help you take that dream that you have and articulate it in such a way that you know what it looks like 3 years from now. You know where you look like 3 years from now, and it excites you, it fills you up, and it puts you on that path. And so the next step down the train, and down that prioritization funnel, from 3 years, you want to go to 1 year out. And 1 year out, that is where you're going to put your plan together of what you want to achieve in 1 year. And here's the important thing to remember is that, 1 year out, you have, most people can, as Bill Gates would say, most people can underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years, right? Which is why your 3C's dream needs to be really, really big. And they overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year. So that vivid vision, right, which is 3 to 5 years out, is going to be pretty big and may seem impossible from where you're at now. But that 1 year plan, where you're at from the 1 year, needs to have the elements of reality in them, like you can realistically achieve them, and so, because you don't want to put them too pie in the sky that a few months in you're like, yeah, I got to revisit this, and I just don't like it. You want to try to be realistic of where you're going to get to, in that year, and that takes a lot of effort. And there's a book that I recommend for this that really, really helps with that. And it also helps with the next two as well. So I'm going to just bring it out now. This book is called Traction by Gino Wickman. And Traction is a book that's really primarily made for businesses, to help scale businesses up. But I find that a lot of the tools that are in this book help with building the systems in your own life, to set goals, to set targets, to build scorecards, and to really, really hold yourself accountable to achieving them. So there's a lot of powerful tools in there. This is one of my favorite books for this. In fact, we're implementing the EOS system and Traction within our own company, Hill Brothers, right now, with great success. And it brings in a lot of discipline. And so I also use it in my own life. And the way that I do that is I take that vivid vision that I've created for 3 to 5 years, and I break it into what do I need to achieve this next year? And in Traction, they call it a Vision Traction Organizer, or a VTO, which makes sure that you're aligning what those goals are for that year with your core values, with what you are hoping to achieve, which of course is your longer term vision. And as you set that 1 year, what 1 year goal up, you ask yourself, all right, well, what are the metrics of what I'm going to achieve? For a business, it's all right, what does my revenue look like? What does my profitability look like? What do my key measurables look like? And how do I set my scorecard up, and what does my 1 year target really look like? And there's more to it. In fact, Traction, this book even outlines a process for setting those 3 year that 3 year picture as well. But bringing the 1 year into play really helps articulate what that is, and Traction helps you articulate that 1 year plan. And in addition to that, as we filter down through the prioritization funnel down from 1 year to our 90-day rocks, well, rocks is a term that comes straight from Traction, and it's used to represent like what we should prioritize over the next 90 days. And so this is how we're getting to the quarter. What are the key 3 to 7 things that we want to achieve in the next 90 days to get us closer to our 1 year and 5 year targets? And so when we set that up, the reason they're called rocks is because it goes after this experiment that was put up that says that when you fill a jar with you have sand, pebbles, and rocks, right? And when you fill that jar with the sand first, you're not going to have room for the pebbles and the rocks. But when you put the rocks in first, you find that you can, that when you put the pebbles in and the sand in, that it can find its way in there and you can fit everything into that jar. And the reason that that's important is because it tells us that what we tend to do in life is we tend to focus first on the sand, the immediate fires, the immediate problems that come up. And that doesn't leave space for the other things, the rocks, that the things that will really drive us toward our goals. Have you ever found that you're focused so much on the day-to-day and the daily fires that you feel like you're not making progress toward your goals? Well, that's the beauty of what quarterly rocks are for, is because it gives you those 3 to 5 things that will move the needle for you over the next 90 days to get you closer to that 1 year goal, or that 1 year target, that 1 year goal, and then closer ultimately to your 3 to 5 year vivid vision. So setting those rocks is critically important. Traction talks about that in their book, in Gino Wickman's book. And then, of course, it also talks about the next step down in that prioritization funnel, which is the weekly to-dos. And these are really the things, if you look at your rock and you create a rock plan, and that kind of sounds like I'm going to go to a rock concert. Like, how many rock concerts am I going to go to this year? Rock and roll. It's a rock plan. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, the rock plan is basically how you're, it's like a mini prioritization funnel, because you're going to take that rock and you're going to create a plan for how you're going to achieve it week over week. What do you have to achieve this week? What to-dos, 5 to 10, 15 items, to-dos do you need on your list that will get you closer to that rock, or get you closer to your rocks, and get you closer to your 1 year and 5 year plans? Well, that's important because, we're going to be able to narrow it down more to the daily list. And as we get down from the rocks to the weekly to-dos and the dailies, this is where we get into the next phase of behaviors, because now we're getting away from the planning, and now we're getting into the action phases. And this is important because now it's going to take our discipline to actually continue to do this. So when we look at the dailies and the weeklies, we have to prepare it. We have to plan it so that we know that we're going to put ourselves in the right mindset to have the right habits and routines to remain consistent with moving forward with these, if we truly want to achieve our goals. And that's where my next book comes in that I want to introduce you to, Atomic Habits. Now, Atomic Habits gets us down to the daily on how to imprint certain things as habits in our lives, how to create them, how to get away from the nasty habits that we get into, like checking our phone at night, or getting distracted or focused on the wrong things, and get into the right habits. It focuses on the psychology of it, and it gets into a lot of things like how to focus on marginal gains. And this is a key aspect of it, because it gets back to the root of when we look at our vivid vision, we see the top of of the staircase, that big, hairy, audacious goal, that 3C's dream, and we look at it from where we're at and we say it's impossible. But the whole point of Atomic Habits is if we look at the very, very next step, we can just strive for those marginal gains, those 1% gains that just push us a little bit forward. And 1% every day makes such a dramatic difference that over the course of a year, I mean, if you think about improving 1% per day for a whole year, I mean, I can't do the math on that, but that's at least 365% better, right? So maybe more. I know mathematicians are going to drop some bombs in the comments on how I didn't do the calculus right on that, but that's okay. Maybe I'll strive to get better at math. Maybe that's my 3C's dream. Anyway, but the whole point is making those marginal gains, 1% at a time, say, make the improvement. Atomic Habits kind of teaches those frameworks on how to achieve that. And ultimately, our habits are broken down into, or how we can pursue our habits are broken down into 4, key elements of questions that we have to ask ourselves, which is, how do you make that thing obvious, that daily to-do? So take your weekly to-dos, and you want to make it easy to achieve it, right? You want to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, according to James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And that way, so with that being said, our tendency might be to take those 15 or so to-dos that we have for the week and just throw them all in on Monday and say, I'm going after it. I'm a high achiever and I'm going to go after it, right? That's not the point, because you're going to burn out if you do that. And you're going to get demoralized when you see that you haven't achieved all those things. And then you're just going to have an endless to-do list because you're not doing the right thing. No, the point is less is more on this front. 1 to 3 to-dos for the day, and be honest with yourself. And do this before, the day before that day you have to do it, is just plan out your day, 1 to 3 to-dos in order that you want to get done for that day. Make sure that what you need to do is obvious, that the result is attractive, and that it's easy to accomplish, that it's easy-ish to accomplish, right? And that it's satisfying. And ultimately, I mean, some of those things won't be easy. Some of the activities won't be attractive. That's true. But you can make the result attractive if you gamify it. And when you put it in this framework of like a prioritization funnel, you could see the progress that you're making. And then that gets into what we will talk about next week, which is the reflection part of it, which is that bottom half of this framework, where you reflect on what you've achieved on the daily, and you find gratitude. You reflect on the things you've achieved on the weekly, and you do a quarterly assessment, a quarterly review. I like to do a quarterly retreat, and I'll introduce you to that when we get to it. But we'll get to all that next week, and how you can reflect on what you've achieved to drive you to greater success. And this, my friends, is how you get onto a virtuous cycle of achievement. It's also how you avoid overwhelm. Because, a lot of times when we aren't systematized, when we don't have the processes and plans in place and the roadmap to where we want to get to, we either very easily burn out, or the uncertainty causes us fear that we're not doing the right things and that we're trapped. But this certainty gives you that conviction, and it tells you that you're at least making that forward progress. So you get that little bit more of peace of mind, and you're able to rise above the fear to achieve a little bit more that day. The goal is not to strive for immense results every day. The way that you make dramatic improvements is one small step beyond your fear at a time. So aim for that, and pick up these 3 books. Again, I'll shout them out again. It's The Vivid Vision for your longer term vision, Traction for setting up your plan for the yearly, quarterly, and weekly to-dos, rocks, and targets, and then Atomic Habits for the daily, for the daily planning. So thanks for joining me today. Next week, we'll get to the reflections part of it. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks again. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.